You know the West. You know the Warriors. When I was thinking, Matt, watching this game tonight, I thought the way they cut and move, is it a Steph thing? Because usually in sports, Matt, when something's great, people duplicate it. They rip it off. Nobody looks like the Warriors.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody moves like the Warriors.
Right.
Nobody cuts like the Warriors. And I come back to, well, shit, it just must be Steph. Or is it? In fact, the only times they have problems is when they stop moving.
Right.
They had that 13-0 Dallas run. When they're moving, it's just impenetrable.
Yeah.
Is it just Steph?
No, I definitely think it's a team thing. When I was there, it was constant movement, and you're so worried about the three-point shot that's how they're so effective in the paint, because you always have to, hedge on these screens, or if Klay or Steph are coming off, show or double team, and they get so many slips. But, Colin, what's interesting to me in a day and age where, dribbling's at a premium and everyone wants to go one-on-one and do what they do, the Warriors are the exact opposite. At the end of the clock, normally if you look at Dallas, the ball's going to be in Luka's hands when they call, when they call red. Red is, under 5 seconds, you got to go. With the Warriors, they continue to move and get a good shot, even if it's with like 0.6 on the clock, they'll still get that extra pass to turn down a good shot and get a great shot. And I think that's what makes them so scary. Although Steph can go one-on-one as a James Harden, as a Kyrie Irving, as other guys in this league do. But I feel like he gets more success off his movement and everyone's ability to kind of continue to move. And it's just almost like pick your poison, to think that Steph was the 5th leading scorer in the game, in a closeout game, and they won by double digits. I mean, there's not another team that can have their leading scorer be the 5th scorer in a closeout game and even be close in the game. And this team wins by double digits with Steph being the 5th leading scorer in a closeout game in the Western Conference Finals.
Coming off an injury is really hard. The only injury I ever had, I had a motorcycle crash as a kid, and I can remember my parents making me get back on the bike. And they're like, you just got to get back on. And,
right.
So in rehab, and you've been in rehab before, you come in rehab, and it's not really a physical battle. It's a psychological battle to pivot, to turn, and I almost felt like in the last 3 games, it's like I visually saw Klay, like just that something hit, something clicked. Now, again, maybe it's just because he played so well tonight. But talk a little bit about, if you could, coming off an injury, rehabbing, the psychology of it. I honestly thought in this series, the second half of this series, I'm like, okay, he's gotten past something upstairs.
I mean, the biggest hurdle coming back from any injury is the mental strength to understand that, okay, if I get knocked off balance, my bad knee or my surgically repaired knee is going to be okay. If I fall awkwardly or land awkwardly on my ankle, my surgically repaired ankle, so on and so forth. The hardest thing to do from an injury is come back and really trust that. And then you add that the kid, the guy missed 940 days. Of basketball. So, he's really been back 5 months after missing 2.5 years of basketball. So, that's why I predicted at the very beginning of the season, depending on what Klay Thompson comes back, Golden State was my pick, because I had a feeling that, he's going to do what he needs to come back. He's not a guy that lives above the rim. He's a very smart player. So I knew athleticism, he wasn't really worried about that because he could still get his shot off. But Klay is really, to me, still working his way back into shape. And one thing about this team, too, if you think about it, they haven't necessarily played. I think they showed peaks in this Western Conference about how good this team can be, but they've been very up and down throughout the playoffs. And to think the first 2 rounds, very up and down, you find yourself in the Western Conference Finals. Normally, in the NBA, we want to be peaking at the right time, although, they won 5 in a row at the end of the season, but they were 6-4. At the end of the season. So normally teams want to peak at that point going into the playoffs. The crazy part is I think the Warriors are starting to peak right now, which is weird. Like I said, you want to peak going into the playoffs, but these guys are peaking going into the finals. That's why I think they're going to be really hard to beat next round.
Ron Adams is a really good defensive coach on that staff. And
my guy.
Is it? Yeah, it's Ron Adams, right? I got it right?
Yeah.
I swear to God, he used to be a Fresno State coach. I don't know why that sticks in my mind. For some point, he's a well-traveled guy. But I saw a stat the other that Golden State, since Steve Kerr took over, is number 1 in the league in opponents' field goal percentage. And we view them as an offensive juggernaut. But, man, they threw early in this series so many looks at Luka. Like, he was off.
Yeah.
So when you were there, so you can't be good at defense without practicing it. Some of you guys you're all gifted offensively. You guys can all do your stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I always feel like the Warriors' defense, it's so intellectual. They can throw so many looks at you 4 times up the court. It's 4 different looks. Like, you got to be so smart. Like, take me inside that.
I think everything they do is contagious, whether it be offense or defense. And the one thing I really liked when I was there for, half the season in 2017, we won a championship was, we go back and watch our edits. Draymond will stop the film and talk. Klay will say stuff. Iguodala would say stuff. Sean Livingston would say stuff. Steph would say stuff. So it's really kind of almost, although Steve Kerr's the coach and there's a lot of high respect for him, these guys are all really high IQ guys. You know what I mean? And the one thing that's rare about this team is when I was there, obviously KD was there. There were so many different superstars and personalities, but all that was left at the door. When you come into practice or when you come into a game, you just want to buy in because everyone is buying in. The stars are buying in. The role players are buying in. So you're almost like, like a sore thumb if you don't buy into whatever it is, whether it's continuing to screen and move offensively, if it's making a second and third effort on the defensive end, if it's, whatever the coverage is, whatever the principles are. It's just such an amazing environment. I hats off to management because to me, everything starts at the top, but it's such an amazing environment that you just want to come in and completely give yourself to whatever's asked upon you that day.
Yeah, that's great. I'll pivot to Luka. Not much of a defensive effort in the second half. Listen, they attacked him. And, I said this the other day on Fox. I said, listen, you can say he's Larry Bird, but Larry Bird was feisty defensively. He was competitive. He wasn't great. Sometimes I feel with Luka, there's a little mellow thing where he's so gifted offensively that just gets his love and attention.
Right.
He doesn't give you great effort.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how you change that, Matt. Like, it feels like defense is attitude. Like, how do you?
Yeah, you have to want to play defense because obviously it's not as decorated. You don't get as much money. You don't get talked about on SportsCenter necessarily about defense. But what I will say is Luka is so young and he's never really been held accountable on the defensive end. And I think that's why I think there's still a chance for him to change because I feel like he's improved this year under Jason Kidd. It's rare that a coach can publicly call out a superstar and then not blow up and backfire. But I think there's such a high level of respect for Jason Kidd there that Luka looked at it as a challenge and not a disrespect, which is, so there's a thin line between that. So I think Luka can get better at defense. And he realized now going this far in the playoffs that he was a target on the defensive end. And as a man, that pride always steps in. So although he's continuing to be one of the most gifted young offensive scorers this game has ever seen, I think where he knows moving forward now is that he's going to start. I feel like he's going to start getting his body, although he's never going to be a 6-pack chiseled guy, but he can obviously, probably trim down the body fat a little bit and get quicker feet. And then, like you said, defense is a mindset and an attitude. And I think no one's asking him to be first team all defense or an all defense in NBA all defense, but sometimes it's just effort that I feel lacks sometimes because he is doing so much. You saw he didn't really sit out in the second half until, Dallas threw up the white flag. So this guy is carrying this franchise and this team every possession up and down the court. So that's why I kind of not giving them a pass, but understand that being able to play both sides of the ball the entire game is very tough because he is asked to carry such a heavy load on the offensive end.
Well, and the other thing, Matt, if you look at his offensive game, he doesn't blow by guys. He initiates contact. It's a lot like James Harden. It beats the hell out of you. I mean, Harden at the end of the playoff series is shot. And, Luka's not jumping over you. He's not John Morant flying past you. Everything is contact.
Yep.
And so when I think about who he should play with, do you put him with another great offensive player and it may not mesh? Or do you put him with kind of a Klay Thompson, a catch and shoot, but an elite defender who doesn't have the ego to be a one? Like, part of me thinks Donovan Mitchell, but he's a one, won't want to be a two. Like, what is the ideal Luka 2 look like to you?
I think it's going to have to be like someone you said, someone in a Klay Thompson frame where he is an elite scorer but doesn't necessarily need the ball in his hands to be a scorer, a great catch and shoot guy, great pin down guy, a guy that can get the ball, get a bucket off the dribble, and also someone that can play defense. But like you said, it's going to be an interesting pairing because Luka is so ball dominant. He's so ball dominant, but I think when they start putting more, and I say this with all due respect, he made it this far with obviously when I say weakest, I don't, because people are crazy, with the weakest supporting cast. You know what I mean? And all those of these
no
guys
question.
are pros, and these guys played really well. If you look up and down the roster, he did what he did. It kind of reminded me what AI did when he took his team to the finals against the Lakers, when it was really just AI. He had a lot of hard-nosed, blue-collar, hard workers, but it was AI. So, to me, it's going to be interesting because I feel like there are one player where I love the breakout season that
Jalen Brunson.
Jalen Brunson had. It's going to be interesting to see if they can keep him because I know some teams are going to throw money at him, but they're going to have to find a star that can pair with Luka that is okay with not having the ball in his hands all the time, because a lot of these stars are best when they have the ball in their hands, and there's not a better person in the league with the ball in their hands than Luka. So they're going to hit, his Batman, so to speak, or excuse me, his Robin, so to speak, is going to have to be someone who's just as effective without the ball, but when he has the ball, he can do what he needs to do.
Yeah, and Jalen's small, so he's not a great defender. So I really do think you got to go find somebody who can score but defend. Gentlemen, Father's Day is right around the corner. And our friends at Manscaped.com are here to ensure all the father figures are looking daddy material this June. Manscaped's Performance Package 4.0 includes the signature Lawnmower 4.0 perfect bundle to tackle any old man hair from head to toe. This 4th generation trimmer features a cutting-edge ceramic blade to reduce grooming accidents. Inside the package, the Lawnmower 4.0, the Weed Whacker, ear and nose trimmer, crop preserver, all the good stuff. There's more at Manscaped. They just launched their brand new Boxers 2.0. They're, dare I say, the best boxers ever. That's manscaped.com. 20% off. Free shipping. The code is Colin. Dads, buy this for yourself. Sons, buy it for your dad. Ladies, buy it for your man. Manscaped.com, code COLIN. 20% off and free shipping too at Manscaped. One of the things about the Warriors that's amazing, like Kayvon Looney has now become an elite rebounder. Jordan Poole was a G League guy. He beats guys off the dribble like it is fast.
Right.
They draft and develop really well.
Key.
Did you see it there? I mean, what's the secret sauce?
If you look, it's just like, again, up top. Bob Myers and those guys, to me, leadership starts at the top, because I was in Golden State before, obviously, with the We Believe run, and it was just a different energy, a different environment. Yeah, we made NBA history. But when I went back this second time, just the energy in that organization is just different. You know what I mean? So obviously being able to draft and make big moves, and I, for one, and I apologize, maybe 4 or 5 months ago, I thought the Andrew Wiggins move wasn't a good move, because I'm thinking, okay, back, Wiggins is not a shooter. He's not this, he's not that, but he was exactly what they needed. He was a guy that can obviously get it off the dribble with the ball in his hands. He's a good spot up shooter, but he plays defense. You know what I mean? So they just see things that other people don't. And, if you think about it, their core was all drafted by that team. Jordan Poole was drafted by that team. Steph, Klay, and Draymond were drafted by that team. Jordan Poole was drafted by the team. So it's just like they have such a great eye for talent, although they're a destination organization still, but they just do such a great job drafting and then kind of developing their guys. They don't give up on their guys. So, obviously hats off to management, because they've been able to build something special in a day and age where we're seeing players in particular, but stars move so much. They've been able to keep their core together, and obviously being able to bring back Andre Iguodala, even though he hasn't been able to provide anything game-wise, I'm sure he's giving these young players on the bench so much knowledge and seeing things, obviously, because he's been with this core that not everyone is seeing. So to be able to keep 4 very high IQ guys around, 3 guys that are still giving to you, the best they can. This Warrior team is special, and that's why at the very beginning of the season, I was just like, Klay comes back semi-healthy, and being able to round himself in health coming into the playoffs. that I really don't see a team beating them because they have all these weapons. I didn't even know about Jordan Poole. Jordan Poole kind of popped up on the scene late, but I just knew mentally and chemistry-wise, those are two things that I think that are overlooked in sports in general, and those are the two things that they're best at.
Well, I mean, Wiggins, if they face the Celtics, you can just put him on Jason Tatum, and you don't even need his offense. Seriously, you just say, like, dude, hold him to 42% shooting. That's a win. I thought he gave Luka trouble throughout.
Length, his length, his speed, and he's strong too. And really, to me, it's hats off to Wiggins because obviously, everyone looked at him as the number one pick. Oh, he's a bust. He's not this. But this guy's been a consistent 18 to 22 point a game scorer his whole entire career. Comes to Golden State now where there's zero pressure on him, maybe the fourth option with all due respect, but he's able to really go out there and just be himself. And when they need to take over, I think was it last game where he had a big game. He was the leading scorer last game. It was just, he can give it to you however you like it. But what I like is he's been able to be that guy that Klay was before the injury. If you remember, people don't realize how important Klay was to that team, not necessarily because of his shooting, although he's one of the best shooters ever. He was the guy that always took Kyrie, Dame Lillard, CJ McCollum, so that Steph didn't. You know what I mean? So now that Klay is still kind of rounding back in shape, I kind of feel like Klay's defense is the last thing that's coming back, but I have no doubt that he'll get it back. But Wiggins has been able to step up and be great with his length, his athleticism, his strength, and then his ability to play passing lanes. He's just been a huge, huge, huge pickup for this team.
Yeah, well, it's All the Smoke, Steven Jackson, Matt Barnes. It's the top athlete podcast out there. And along with our Draymond Green podcast, I mean that seriously. It's really thoughtful, really smart, and but it's funny. You're just a guy that always thought about stuff. So like when you would come on the show, I'm not surprised it worked because you were always somebody that asked you a question, and you have a football background, you got a basketball background, you've been around the league. It's funny. Ideally, Matt, a pro athlete would get drafted, stay with the same team, 15 years, get rich, win titles, go. But it's weird. The movement you did actually makes you a better podcaster.
It helped me.
It really does.
I've seen so much in this space, and I really wanted to just kind of give you your flowers right now because I just feel like the media is such a crazy, unpredictable space right now. I feel like people feel like they have to come on and be loud and obnoxious and say wild shit and make crazy predictions to kind of get those clicks. And it almost hurts my feelings because just what happened to people that just come in and talk about the game. And obviously, being a part of the media now is tough because you do have to be critical on people you used to play against and guys in general. But I think there's a way to do it without disrespecting. And I think that you've just kind of always been, a real guy, off the cut, genuine. If you have to be critical, you're critical in a respectful way, and you just deliver and do your job. And to me, I don't think you care if, obviously the clicks are great, but to me, you're just giving us cold, hard facts. And you've just always been one of my favorite guys. And like I said, in a time where the media is just absolutely upside down because only people care about is clicks and disrespecting and saying wild things, you've really stayed true to yourself. And really, to me, one of my favorite guys, but just kind of really someone I look up to, and I know other athletes look up to you in this space because of the way you carry yourself and the way you deliver your information. So we appreciate you, man.
Well, that means a lot. That really is powerful stuff. Keep kicking butt. Anytime you need me for anything, you won't, but if you do, I'm here. And thank you so much for your insight and your time, buddy.
Definitely got to get you on the show soon. We'll talk soon, Colin. Thank you for having me.
I'd love to. Thanks, man.